When's the last time you ever heard kids screaming? And I mean in the best way possible, but when is the last time you've ever heard kids playfully screaming? Right? Back before COVID, right, you could hear kids screaming all the time, kids screaming playfully, kids playing around in the background. I live in an apartment, so I could hear kids playing and screaming. Uh, Downstairs is because I live in a high-rise apartment. But for those who don't, those who live in cottages or homes, or if you're from America, in an actual house, a villa, or somewhere in the suburbs, somewhere where you don't really see apartments that often. When is the last time you saw kids playfully screaming? And when is the last time you heard that? And when is the last time you acknowledged that sound? Because as far as I've experienced after COVID, a lot of the sounds that we see have died down. Right? A lot of noises, a lot of what we considered before as being noise is disappeared completely. And when we acknowledge hearing that anymore after COVID, we understand its significance, we understand its purpose, right? And you have to understand, you just have to take in what uh, COVID did to us, because I believe that this is a change that was seen partially or completely due to COVID, and it was definitely seen after COVID, because we were rushed into our houses we were locked inside our own homes for a year or two, and human beings are social animals, so we can't really survive on our own for a very long time, right? And that has shifted us, or that has put us into a loneliness epidemic. By that I mean we just have stopped understanding, or we don't take in what it means to be a community at all anymore. We've grown highly individualistic, and that's not exactly a bad thing, but that's not exactly ideal as well, because a sense of community is what has helped humanity to grow for a very long time. You can try to imagine early humans. They stayed together, and that's how they survived, and that has developed an instinct inside us to constantly stay together with the right people. And if you don't stay together with the right people, then you become depressed, and that's also why I think a lot of mental illnesses are on the rise. But this isn't exactly about the COVID lockdown or what COVID did to us in its entirety. That's a topic for another day. This is just a very small aspect of what COVID did, and that's we've forgotten sounds. We've forgotten what it means to hear properly. We've forgotten what it means to take in everything that we can hear around us and acknowledge it in its entirety. It's kind of a meditative practice if you think about it. But I believe that before COVID, before everything had gone quiet, before when there used to always be constant noise everywhere, when we had noise all around, when we had sounds in abundance, we didn't really realize it. And COVID was the catalyst that led us to our conclusion, or at least my conclusion, that we've forgotten sounds. Before we could hear it, and before we actually enjoyed it, I think at least a subconscious part of us enjoyed it a lot, and the only way we could realize it is after we spent 4 years, well, not exactly four, but after we spent at least 2 years in in complete silence, in the captivity of our homes, in our own cages, right? And we collectively forgot what it was like to hear kids playing. I'm not exactly a kid, or I'm not exactly an adult either. I'm a teenager, right? But small kids, I'm talking about small kids. I'm talking about people. I'm talking about kids who are 10 years old and younger. Those kind of kids. We've forgotten what it's like to hear them scream, and some of us have grown repulsive to it, right? Because we have created such habits. We've become so habitual to constant complete silence, that any sort of noise is something out of the ordinary, something that we perceive as foreign, something that we don't like. And I think it's a change that we can see in a lot of older people, because, and obviously it's nothing against people of an older age, but it's just that, you know, I, I mean, it's a very natural phenomenon. It's a very natural occurrence. Lockdown or not, we always had old people grumbling around it when kids used to play. It was always a bit too loud for them, or it was always so quiet that they couldn't hear us in the first place. In which case, they'd let us be. At least that's what followed when I was a kid, right? And we have forgotten. I can't stress on it enough. We've forgotten what it means to hear. Let's leave aside the sound of children screaming and playing and kicking and shouting for a moment. When is the last time we listened to the sound of the wind? It makes sense to romanticize it a lot, at least on, well, TikTok's not here in India, so we use Instagram Reels majorly. But when is the last time we listened to the sound of the wind? Anywhere, just any type of wind. When was the last time the wind whistled past our ears and we listened to it completely and we took it in? And we didn't react to it at all. Just take it as input, process it, and keep it inside yourself. No reaction. Right? When is the last time we've done a complete acknowledgement of sound? We haven't. We haven't done it for a very, very long time. And there are other sounds, there are other noises as well that we just have completely forgot. We've just completely forgotten have existed for so long, that their existence has completely slipped through our minds. We hear constant honking. We hear cars passing by almost every other day. I think you can, if I'm not wrong, at least I can hear it. There's a car passing by right now outside my house, at least downstairs on the road. And you have to understand that a lot of us just consider it and discard it as complete, utter, meaningless noise, but there is some sort of truth behind it, or there is some sort of there is some depth to it, is what I'll say. There is some depth to it, and the depth is that we have forgotten what it is like to acknowledge a car passing from A to B using our ears only. And it's a very major, it's a very, very distressing thing if you think about it in its entirety, or if you think about it long enough. But it's something that we've forgotten, and it's something that we shouldn't. We should try to remember what it is like to hear, and we should try to keep it as down to our roots as possible. Because we, or humans, the human race, has always listened to children screaming and kicking and playing and shouting for as long as humans have existed. We've always listened to, children throwing a tantrum. We've always listened to babies crying somewhere or the other. But we haven't really listened to the sound of planes, or we haven't really listened to the sound of cars. We haven't really listened to, the sound of extremely futuristic motorcycles and motor vehicles until the 20th century, of course. We might have grown habitual to it, but I think the inner early human inside us would be a lot more grateful to us if we were to listen to something that was a lot more timeless. Just listen to sounds. Don't listen to music. Listen to sounds. And that's all for today. I just wanted to share an experience, and I think that it's one of the most important experiences I'll ever share.